What is going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. This is Eric Sztanyo from teamsztanyo.com, where we are helping you find your home and strengthen your family. And we're live, so welcome in Team Sztanyo Clanyo. Good to be here with you. I've got to go show a house in about a half an hour or so. Maybe we have about 40 minutes. So if you're on the live chat, feel free to jump in the chat, ask any questions you might have about the home buying or selling process, or any other questions you might have about Cincinnati or Northern Kentucky area. What we are going to do today, because I get this question a lot, and I realize like I've got a lot of new subscribers to the channel, a lot of maybe first-time home buyers. It might be good to go back to some of the basics of the home buying process. And so what I want to go through today is 6 steps to the home buying process, give you an outline, but also kind of give you some inside realtor baseball on how to think through each of these steps. And you know, you can go research all this stuff on Google and on a blog post and kind of understand it, but you know, I just want to give you kind of my take as someone who's been doing real estate for several years now and understands the market and what the market is like right now, because some of these steps change as you go, you know, as the market changes. And so right now we've been obviously in a very hot seller's market that makes the process for buyers a little bit different. Your strategy for how you get a house might be a little bit different. The strategy for how you're putting in offers is definitely going to be different. So we're going to talk through that. And like I said, if you have any questions along the way, either about these steps or about anything in the Cincinnati area, obviously check out our channel. We've got all kinds of videos about different neighborhoods, about cost of living in Cincinnati, about pros and cons of living in Cincinnati, about new construction homes, about market updates. So lots of content out there for you guys to consume, and we're trying to build to that every single week so that you guys get a feel for what it's like to live in the area from somebody who's been here 30 plus years now. So I have 5 kids. I've lived on both sides of the river in Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati, now back in Northern Kentucky. And so have a good feel for the area at large and love helping people who are moving into the area specifically. So let's get into this home buying process, and we'll talk through it here. So this is a guide I send out a lot of times, especially to first-time home buyers. If you've never bought a house, it's kind of helpful, and it's a guide to buying your home from Eric Sztanyo. And some of this is kind of Keller Williams template language, like it's all about you. Yeah, it is, but you know, I don't love that language. But it's about your needs, your dreams, your questions. So gives you a little bit about what you get from me when you're working through a realtor. We're going to talk through that, but you get a knowledgeable professional who represents you. So nice thing, a lot of people don't realize this, when you are working, when you're buying a house, you don't have to pay for the realtor. The sellers are going to pay through their commission. So in Cincinnati, that's generally a 6% commission. 3% of that goes to the listing agent's broker and then to the agent, and 3% of it goes to the buyer's agent broker. So when you're buying a home, reach out to a realtor right away, because it doesn't cost you a thing. You're going to get, when you work with a good agent, a thorough consultation to understand your unique wants and needs, advice on making offers based on expert market evaluation so you don't overpay. That is very important in this market right now. A committed ally who will complete your purchase contract, present your offer, and negotiate on your behalf. So someone who has experience negotiating, right? And also has experience with the contracts. This is a very important part of what you're getting with a buyer's agent. Preparation on all the closing documents and guidance through the closing process. With my team, I have a transaction coordinator. Her name is Jill. She's amazing. She once we get under contract, I help with inspections. We'll talk about that in a minute. And she is like Miss Detail, make sure every deadline is met, every box is checked. So she's amazing, and you get that when you work with Team Sztanyo. And assistance with any post-closure issues, let's say a home warranty issue or anything comes up. And the backing of a trusted company of Keller Williams Realty, the largest real estate brokerage in the world. Whoa, I just realized the light is like really dark. Might be the background here. So sorry if it's really dark today. Let me see if I can turn this up. Whoop, hang on. See if that helps. Okay, so let's keep going. Here's some things I commit to do, but let's get into these 6 steps. Okay, so you're wanting to buy a house and you're trying to figure out what to do. Let's talk through these steps. And like I said, if you jump in and have any questions in the chat, feel free to jump in. Would love to answer those with you today. We've got about 30 more minutes before I got to jump and head to a second showing for some buyers who are in from out of town and are looking to buy a house on the east side of town. They just want to take a look at it again before we put it in an offer. Okay, so step number 1, let's dig into this. Choose a realtor. So step number 1, step number 2 could kind of flip-flop in my opinion. Obviously, this is a guide from a realtor, and so it's saying to choose a realtor first. And hopefully if you're watching this, hey, choose me. I raised my hand. I'd love to represent you, but let's just read this. Choose the best real estate agent to represent you. There's no way you're going to know that, but like, let's talk about some tips here. I mean, if it's your first time buying a house, how are you going to know who's the best? But let's talk through it. The best agent to represent you finding and purchasing your dream home and sign a buyer agent's agreement to work together. I sometimes have my clients sign those buyer agency agreements. Basically, it's saying you're hiring me. You won't go flake off and use another realtor. Most of the people I work with, it's kind of a basis of trust. And so if I'm not doing a good job for you, I don't want to like lock you into that. So the reason sometimes I don't do those agreements is like, if I'm showing your homes, I'm going to trust that I'm your guy, right? And you're not going to go off to some other agent. The buyer agency agreement locks that in and puts it in writing. Maybe down the road, maybe I haven't been burned enough on this. Maybe down the road, I'll do more of these agreements in the future. But as of now, usually it's like, hey, if you want to work with me, call me up. We'll go through the rest of this process together, and I'll help you throughout the process. It's important you trust your agent, as you'll be spending a lot of time together, and your agent will help you with one of the biggest financial commitments you will make. So I'll say this, it's not only important that you trust the agent, it's actually it's also important that you like the agent. So, you know, if you're watching these videos, I assume you don't hate my personality, but like, different agents have different personalities. I am more of a laid back. In fact, I was showing these clients some houses yesterday, and they're like, "You're more laid back than our other agents." I'm like, "Yeah, like, different agents have different personalities, right? You have probably seen HGTV shows, and you see like a lot of glitz and glamour, and that kind of agent who's like definitely putting on an image of like, I don't know, luxury, and we're the best, and a lot of that is the image they put forth. And if you want to work with that person, great, like go work with that person. Me, I'm like, I want to get you the best home. I want to understand you really well. I ask a lot of questions. I try to listen really well. I want to understand your budget. I want to understand what's best for your family. So at Team Sztanyo, we have this saying that we say, which is we believe that home is where families grow strong together. So I think home is a really, really important part of your family's story. It's almost like a character in the story. And so trying to understand and match where that home is, it's going to help craft and shape your family is really important to me. So that means for me, I want to hear like every clue I get, I'm trying to analyze that so that we find you the best home. That doesn't mean the most expensive home, right? And I think a lot of people think that when they are working with an agent, that an agent only wants to sell the most expensive house. That may be true of some agents. At least I can speak for me personally and our team. We want to find the best house for you. I mean, am I happier if you buy a more expensive house? Yeah, like we make more commission, but long term, I'd much rather the house be the best fit for you and your family. So anyway, that is step number 1, which is choosing a realtor. And I'd recommend looking at reviews online. I'd recommend, you know, you could sort through channels like this, like YouTube, there's not that many agents doing YouTube channels, right? You can find other agents doing other social media, so you can get a feel for them doing that way. You can get referrals, obviously, from family and friends who have maybe worked from other people. Or you could just do, you know, a Google search. I mean, there's a lot of ways to find a realtor. What I would say is you want to kind of interview the realtor first. Like, at least get on the phone call. Do you have some kind of rapport with this person? Do you feel like they get you? Do you feel like they have time for you? Do you feel like you matter to them? And do you like them? Like, honestly, you're going to be spending a lot of time with kind of a needs analysis and then going and seeing houses. You want to work with somebody that makes the process enjoyable. It can be a stressful experience. And so if you get the impression right away from someone that you're like, this person's kind of like a jerk, like, I don't know if I want to work with them, or then bail. I would say bail on that person if you haven't signed a buyer agency agreement. All right, let's keep going here. So that's step one, choose a realtor. Step number two, obtain financial pre-approval. So let's read through this, and then we'll give it some we will give it a little context as well here. So get pre-approved for a loan before you find the home you want to buy. The benefits include, you know, your price range, closing costs, and monthly payments up front. You only look at homes within your price range. Your negotiation position with the seller is stronger. Closing on your new home can happen more quickly. Okay, so in a normal market, some of these statements are like, yeah, you should probably get one before you go shopping. In today's market, it is like, I'm not going to work with you unless you have a pre-approval letter. And pretty much every realtor is going to say the same thing, unless they're desperate for business, honestly. Because it has been such a seller's market for so long and continues to be, if you don't have a pre-approval letter, you're wasting your time. You're not going to have any offer that's considered from any seller, and you also, to these other points, you don't even know what you can afford. And so, but specifically in this market, like, if you don't have a pre-approval letter and you want to go see houses, I might show you one house just to meet you, but then it's like, all right, you need to talk to a lender ASAP. Here are 3 of my favorite lenders. Call them, or if you don't have one already. And I do recommend that you listen to your realtor in terms of which lenders they recommend. Now, here's the thing. I think a lot of people, I know I felt this way when I'm gonna close these blinds real quick just for the darkness. It's too much light coming in. Okay, maybe that helps. A lot of people think at this point in the process that, like, when someone says get a pre-approval lender, they immediately start feeling sold. Like, ooh, so you're saying I've got to go, like, talk to someone who's going to be looking into my bank accounts? And I get that feeling. I remember that being a first-time home buyer and being like, I don't like this. Don't push me into anything. And so I get that feeling of hesitancy where you're like, you're just trying to make me buy a house, and you're just trying to, like, get me to sign something. And the answer is yes, we are. Like, you need to get the pre-approval letter to buy a house. If you're not serious enough to get the pre-approval letter, which what that basically means is you go to a lender, they do kind of a cursory interview with you of, like, do you have money? Like, can you buy a house? Do you have income? These things matter if you're trying to get a loan. If a bank is going to loan you money, they need to know, are you going to pay them back or not? Is there so they're going to look at your credit. Like, you came to me asking to buy a house, this is the first step. Like, if you chose a realtor, like, you have to go get a pre-approval letter. So just to kind of, I don't know, speak to that, like, that idea of you're just trying to sell me. Yeah, you have to go through this process. The second thing I would say about this is, in these bullet points here, is, like, you only want to look at homes within your price range. And you can know your price range, your closing costs, your monthly payments up front. That is all very valuable. Like, especially in this climate when rates continue to be low and you can buy more house because rates are low, then you want to know that up front. The second thing is, like, you can waste so much time scrolling on your phone looking at houses that you might not be able to afford. And time is valuable. Your time is valuable. My time is valuable. And so when you know that pre-approval number of like, hey, you could be approved up to 200, 300, 400, 500,000, whatever it is. Like, now you can start to go, oh, I didn't know that, or oh, I thought I could afford this, but I can't, and so we need to shop here. And the second thing I would say about that, or another thing I would say, is that in this market, when homes are going over asking price on a regular basis, you're probably going to want to shop not to the limit of what you're pre-approved for, but below that, so that if you get into a competitive situation with a house that you really, really like, you can bid over what the asking price is and still have room for what you're pre-approved to. So that's a strategy that you want to use right now in a seller's market, is don't max it out. And in general, I don't think it's a good idea to max out what you're pre-approved for in terms of unless you're really confident about the income that's coming in and it's not stretching you. I don't like people to be stretched in terms of their house payment. I like them to feel comfortable with it, so that they can afford the other things that come up with owning a house, like various maintenance projects that come up along the way. So this is, you choose your realtor. Step number 2, you have to get that pre-approval letter, and it's a must. And every realtor is going to tell you that. And like I said, I don't even go show houses until like this thing is in hand. The other thing I would say is to this is, which lender should you work with? Feel free to shop rates. I started talking about this before. I have some lenders that I always share with people. It's not because I get a kickback. It's not because there's you actually can't do that legally. Realtors can't get commissions when they're referring lenders. The reason why realtors specifically refer lenders is they know the lender's good, and they know the lender can get the job done, and they know that when there are problems in the loan application and approval process, they're going to actually work through those problems, whether it's through an underwriter or an appraisal or repairs addendums or whatever it is. So when realtors are referring lenders, it's because they have a track history with that lender. That lender has proven themselves to get the deal done and get to the closing table, and that matters. If you're working instead with a nameless, faceless bank that is like gigantor in size, and you get lost in the various levels of bureaucracy within the lending institution, when a problem hits the fan, which it usually does at some point, that can be a headache. That can mean you're pushing closing dates out further. That could screw up your schedule. That can mean you might not close. So get your pre-approval letter, and I would recommend at least talking with the lenders that the realtor suggests. You can choose whoever you want. And if you've banked with someone for a long time, that often makes sense why you want to keep it with that bank. But that's step number 2. Obtain your financial pre-approval letter. All right, I got to move a little faster because I got to go show some houses. So I hope this is helpful. Again, if you have questions, leave them in the chat. We're going to keep going down the list here. Step number 3, view homes and find the one. Again, this thing was written by Keller Williams. I honestly, here's a little philosophy point from Eric Sztanyo. When it says the one, in quotes, that makes it sound like there's only one house for you that would work for your family. I don't believe that to be true. I don't believe that to be true. Likewise, I don't believe like there's one soulmate out there for every individual. I love my wife. We've been married, oh gosh, it'll be 16 years in December, and she's amazing. She's the best person in the world. She's great for me. However, I think there are multiple women I could have married that if they had same values as myself, like, we would have had a lasting good marriage. So whatever, that's a quick side blurb. After a thorough understanding of your new home needs, you receive a list of homes that meet most of all your requirements, and we schedule them to visit them. Schedule time to visit them. I will also help you find homes through my mobile app, for sale by owner, open houses, new home developments. Okay, really the only thing that matters here is bullet number 1 and 4 is really where you're going to look for most of your search, and not even through the mobile app. I mean, I'm again, Keller Williams is pushing this thing. You can use my mobile app. It's great, but like, I'm going to set up a search in the MLS for you. I'm going to keep it fairly vague because the MLS might filter out things you don't want. I often tell people, use your own search too. If you like using Zillow, fine. If you like using Realtor.com, fine. Like, If you see a home that you like, let's put it on the list, and I'll schedule a showing for you. I will create my own portal for you that updates, and the advantage of a portal from a realtor is that you get those updates a little bit faster before they syndicate out through all of the different websites, real estate websites. And so if you're like, we're gonna jump fast, that can be an advantage. But the point is, you need to get a list of homes that are matching mostly what you want. So you've at this point talked with your realtor about a criteria of like, these are my wants, these are my needs, and this is my budget, and okay, let's go shopping within those parameters. A lot of times, what happens is your list of parameters kind of change as you go out looking for homes. And so sometimes I get people saying like, well, I don't want to go look at a house until I know it's the one. I don't want to waste your time. And while I appreciate that, I really do, and most realtors do, what I tend to find with buyers is there's a couple of things. A, real estate photographers are really good. Trust me. And so until you've driven by the property and been in the property, you don't really know what those photographs represent. There could be a smell that doesn't come through a photograph that you're like, what the heck is that smell? There could be something around the property that is not as appealing, like a cell phone tower, or there's construction going on, or whatever. There's a neighbor that's like, oh, do I want to live by that neighbor? So you kind of need to go to the houses to see. If you want to save your realtor time, drive by the property. Great, I'm totally fine with that. But the second thing that happens when you start to see the houses to find the one is that your criteria changes. And so you're going to have a list that you think are your top items, and it may end up being those top items, but not until you get out there and start looking at some other houses do you start realizing what really matters to you. Is it the open floor plan? Is it having a basement? Is it the yard with a fence? Is it not being on a busy road and being in a cul-de-sac? Is it updated bathrooms? Whatever the thing is, like, those things will rise to the top as you start to see multiple houses. And so that's why I'm never offended when people go out and we're like, this isn't the one. I'm like, that's fine, but what's the feedback? What don't you like about it? So that we can get smarter on the next ones. So that when we go and see the house that we know is the one, it's checking like 90% of your boxes. No house is probably going to check 100% of your boxes, and that's probably good to know up front. So just know that, like, you're trying to let your criteria surface to the top of what matters the most, maybe your top 5 criteria. And if something checks those boxes and then has maybe 2 or 3 things you don't like, that still might be the right house for you. Because it's hard to check every single box. It's almost nearly impossible to do that. The second thing this says here is, so there's a search. We've talked about this a lot on the channel, but there's also this idea of new home developments. So one of the nice things about new home developments is you might be able to check more of those boxes because you can craft the design of the home, the layout, the floor plan, where it is. It might cost a little bit more in this day and age, but the nice thing about new construction is you're not fighting all the buyers, the high demand and the low supply in the scenario we're in right now in the market. And so you might pay a little bit of a premium to get a new house, but you're also getting a new house, which is kind of nice. Like, you're not sharing it with, you know, somebody else who's been living there for 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years, whatever. So that's another option in terms of finding the house. For sale by owner and open houses, those can happen. Money. They don't want to pay the 6% commission. So most agents, or at least I'll speak for myself, I don't go show for sale by owners unless that seller says, yeah, they're willing to pay the buyer's agent commission of 3%. So they save half. I still don't really love them because I end up having to do double the work because usually sellers have no freaking idea what they're doing. So I have to manage the paperwork on both sides of the transaction, which if you see a for sale by owner that you love, I'll show it to you reluctantly. That's the truth of it. But mostly I want to show you homes that are on the market or new construction homes. Open houses, you can go by yourself and take a look at those, but Open houses. Open houses are basically just a little more inside baseball here. Open houses are a tool by the listing agent to get more leads from buyers, because 0.05% of the time does anyone buy a house at an open house. Sellers think that it helps them sell their house. It doesn't. Open houses do not help you sell your house. The statistics are like overwhelming by this. Like once in a blue moon does a buyer actually come to an open house. Typically who comes to your open house are your nosy neighbors and looky-loos, people who aren't pre-approved yet. And so it's really the reason why listing agents do open houses is to get leads from other buyers. That's a little inside fact there. Okay, anyone who's on the chat, welcome. Feel free to let your questions roll in, whether it's about the home buying process or anything about Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky real estate or the area. I've got just about 10 more minutes here before I got to run to a showing. So let's blast through this. Okay, step number 4. You've now found the home that you love. It's time to make an offer on your dream home. I'll research the market data on the home to help you determine what to offer, and we will present a written offer to the seller's agent. There may be some negotiation required, and the seller may either accept, reject, or counter your offer. When the seller accepts the offer, it becomes a legal contract. So you can send your original offer, and they can be like, yep, we like it, and they sign off and everything. Now you're under contract, you're pending. Or they can reject it, just ignore it, or just say nope. Or they can counter it. When they counter it, now you have the decision to make. Do you want to accept, counter, or reject? That's how it works. So in the offer, there's a handful of things that matter. There's the offer price. There's your earnest money going down. There's, are you asking for closing costs? And in this market, most buyers do not ask for that. So that means it's going to be a little bit more cash out of your pocket at closing. The way to offset that, if you do want to ask for closing costs, because the sellers only really care about the net amount. So let's say your offer was $200 with no closing costs. That's the same as an offer with $205 and $5K of closing costs. To the seller, it's a net of $200 either way. If you're in a competitive situation, I would recommend trying to do a clean offer with no closing costs, because it just signals to the seller that you're maybe a little bit stronger of a buyer and that you don't need the closing costs, and so maybe you're more likely to get to the closing table and not back out. It's the same dollar amount, but it's a different signal in terms of the strength you are as a buyer. The other things you need to put in the offer that matter, is there anything included in the sale that's like not attached to the property, like a trampoline or washer dryer or something like that? Your closing date, are you asking for a home warranty? Are you asking for title insurance? Are you waiving inspections or not? Wouldn't recommend that necessarily. Oh, James, I had 2 live links open. I got to figure that out next week. Sorry. I think I might have to cancel one and restart the live thing. So I'll try to figure out that next week. And thank you for letting me know that, James. Let's see here. Where was I at? So yeah, you make an offer, and that's an exciting time. Now in this period of time, usually your agent's going to call the listing agent and say, do you have any offers in hand? If they have offers, that means you might need to be more competitive. You might need to go over ask price, maybe even some other concessions. Like sometimes people want a faster closing date, etc., or a longer closing date if they need to go buy a house and they need time to shop. So your agent's really going to work for you here when it's time to make offers, in terms of getting details for you and helping you make a shrewd and wise offer. And sometimes, even if you make a great offer, you might lose out. That's kind of the market we're in right now. Next steps, once you go under contract, your pending, is time for inspections and negotiating repairs. So in the Cincinnati and Kentucky contracts, there are 3 contingencies where you can get out of the deal if you need to. There's an inspection contingency, financing contingency, and appraisal contingency. If you see something in the inspection that you don't like, that is scary, you can back out of the deal and get your earnest money back. If you can't get the loan that you put in the offer, if you can't get the financing that you said we need this in order to close, you can get out of the contract and get your earnest money back. If the home doesn't appraise for the amount of the offer that you put in, and you can't come to a negotiation on that with the seller, you can get your money back. So you're protected in a lot of ways. The inspection process is kind of the, once the initial offer is signed, the inspection process is the most tense process. Once you're through inspections, you're probably going to close. Like really high chance, probably 95% of the time. Inspections are, you're going to hire an inspector for about $500. They're going to go in there. They're going to make a 40 to 60 page report of everything that's wrong in the house. They're going to hand you that report. You're going to be like, oh crap, there's all these things wrong with the house. And your agent's going to be like, it's all right. Don't worry. We see this all the time. Every house has things wrong with it. And what you're looking for are material defects. Anything that's wrong with the foundation, any water intrusion, anything wrong with the mechanicals, any safety issues, any electric issues, any plumbing issues. Material defects. We're not looking for cosmetic items. We're looking for things that are actually a problem with the house. And we're going to ask for those things in an inspections addendum. We're going to say, hey, Mr. Seller, these are the things that are seriously wrong with the house. We want you to fix these things or give us this much money. Or maybe a combination of the two. So you can negotiate either where the sellers do the repairs themselves, or the sellers give you an amount of money where you do the repairs. Some people like that because they'd rather hire their contractors. And so you've got your realtor will help you negotiate that in a way that doesn't impact your loan in the wrong way, because you can't just get cash sometimes if lenders don't really like to see that, where you like get cash. So if you haven't asked for repair for closing costs, one way you can do that is say, well, we want $5,000 in closing costs now. So that's basically like you're not bringing $5,000 to the closing table that you had to bring before, and so that's basically like putting $5,000 in your wallet that you can then go do those repairs. So anyway, you go back and forth, you negotiate the repairs, and that's kind of the second negotiation period. Usually you have around 7 to 10 days to do your inspections and get any quotes that you need. So once you go under contract, you should be hiring your inspector immediately in case you need to get contractors in there for quotes. And then once you deliver your inspections addendum, which is a list of things you want them to repair, usually you've got 5 days to it's called the settlement period, where you can agree on which repairs they're going to do or not going to do. Once you're through that and you've both signed off on that, then you're basically cruising to closing. The lender is going to get their appraisal done. You just need to collect receipts if the seller's doing any repairs to make sure they did the work. You're going to have a final walkthrough. So that's number 6 here. We're going to wrap up the final review of contract and close. The closing is the formal process of signing papers, paying fees and closing costs, and receiving the keys to your new home. So with our system, you're going to be working with Jill, our transaction coordinator. She's going to be making sure all the paperwork is done, that all the repairs were done, that the closing gets scheduled, everything you need to come to the closing table. Then at the closing table, you're basically signing a bunch of papers. You're signing a bunch of papers that say to the lender, hey, we agree that we're mortgaging this house, if you're getting a loan, if you're not buying cash, and saying we're going to pay you back if we can't blah blah blah. If we can't pay our payment, you get to take the house back, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually you sign the deed of the property, where the seller signs the deed over to you. You now are the owner of the home because you've got the deed in hand. The title company is going to facilitate all that, and they're going to file all of that with the county, and now you're the new owner of the house. You get the keys and you can start moving in. Usually occupancy is at closing then. So that is the 6 steps to home buying. Super easy, right? But you can tell just, from me going through these things, it's like you can do all this stuff yourself. It's helpful to have someone guide you along the way. It's helpful to have a realtor because, especially when you've never done this before, there's so many questions that come up and things that you don't know how to do. So it is really helpful to have a guide, someone to kind of like be your compass and work you through all these different steps. That ultimately, once you sign those papers and you get those keys, it's a really good feeling. So, all right, guys, that's going to about wrap it up today. I got to get to another showing, and then I think we're going to be putting in an offer on this house for my buyers who are in town. And I hope this video was helpful for you in terms of the process. Leave comments below. We are at as of the time of this recording, we are at 998 subscribers. So we are 2 away from 1,000, which is super cool. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. And if you need help either buying or selling a house in Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati, give us a call at Team Sztanyo, 513-813-6293. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll see you next time.